online broadcast network, AfterBuzz TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AfterBuzz TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Welcome, AfterBuzzers. We are here for House of Cards, Season 4, Chapter 40. If you do not recognize us, we are a new panel. We love the old panel, and we love House of Cards, and we're here to just enjoy and discuss, and hopefully you enjoy our discussion. I am joined by new panelists here.
Michael Clous. You can follow me on Instagram at Michael Clous TV. No, that is Twitter at Michael Clous TV. On Instagram at The Only MC. There are so many social networks nowadays. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. You know, you can't keep them all straight.
It's too much. We're spread too thin. Hey guys, I'm Maria Cavassuto. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Maria Cavassuto and on Snapchat at MGCVSST.
And I am Kevin Ellis. You can find me on Twitter at TheKevinEllis or Instagram at KevinEllis25. You'll find a lot more on Instagram than you will on Twitter. As
no, he's like non-existent on Twitter.
Once again, you got to narrow down what you can keep up with.
Exactly.
I feel you.
And I'm Shaka Smith. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram under Shaka Strong. But let's get right into it. This was a crazy episode. I think probably a first for an opening season. We had a reporter in jail, and we opened to a masturbation scene. You know, really, I mean, how else can I say it? I try to think of it in a better way.
You know, there's not really a better way to just come out strong.
Yeah.
You know, and it really hits you. You know, and that's one of the things that I love about this show is that every episode is really deep and just like hard hitting. And they, right off the bat,
I had no idea
where it left off.
Where that was going or what the overarching theme will be, but did you guys take anything away from that and kind of where it was going subsequently after this began?
I honestly just kind of saw it as Lucas being in a really bad place. It just kind of seemed like this horrible hole that he's kind of stuck in, and the only smidge of like anything that he has left are his words because he's a journalist, right? So he knows how to use them very well. So I just saw him like being sunken into an abyss that like, how much worse does it get, really?
Yeah.
Like what Maria said, I feel like that Lucas, we're seeing him at his lowest point. He is trying to serenade another gentleman into orgasm.
Serenade?
And it's just one of those moments where you're seeing a guy who hopefully will crawl out of the abyss that you were just talking about, and hopefully by the end of the season probably get to a place where he's a lot more formidable than he is right now.
I think the fact that they opened up with him shows that he's going to be a pretty main player, in this season.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And I love
Which
that
obviously
you
is
said
the storyline is going to be pretty huge as well.
Yeah, and I love that you said that all he had left was his words, because that's really because you think about prison, he's not really the right person to be the head guy, but here he is using what he does have left.
I mean, honestly, if he had stayed there any longer, he could have probably bought his safety by doing more of this.
And then you actually realize, later in the episode, because I remember looking at that and being like, why?
Yeah.
Why? Like, is this really necessary? But later on in the episode, it comes back is that he's kind of building trust a little bit with this guy.
Yeah, we realize what's really happening.
So, there's a purpose behind it. Because I remember talking with a friend, and there's like, why did that, like, right off the bat?
Yeah, I kind of had the same feeling, but then once we kind of see what happens later, it makes sense, and I'm like, okay, give it a pass. And it was weird, but I think, like you guys said, it's just coming out strong.
And I love that camera work, the way it revealed, it kind of opened up, and you're like, oh my god, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But
we have to figure it out.
We finally, after that, we get into the meat of what's happening. So Frank is kind of prepping his speech, and we remember from the episode, the end of last season, Claire says, "I'm gone,"
And it picked up right afterwards.
Yeah,
It
literally.
was appreciated.
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting to see them on their own. I love them as a couple.
Oh,
So
me too.
it's killing me that they're like not together. And so it was interesting to see him having to change the speech, and it was almost like it hurt me. I was like, oh man. What did you guys think of that?
I actually love them as a couple too. I actually don't think that they function without each other because again, we'll see later on in this episode when we talk about it, but like they literally need each other for everything, even if it's to backstab each other. It's just like they're always in constant need of each other. So I agree with you. I was kind of like, but I thought the way he made it work, he's such a master at this, you know, at politics and like corruption, and it's just like he just always finds a way to make it work.
Yeah, there was like a controlled anger about him in that scene, which we haven't seen him at that point. We had not seen him lose it over Claire, and I think that like him like crossing out, you know, the pen marking twice. It's like he, you know, calmly went for the second pen, and he just like he was crossing out her name, and he was putting a lot of thought into that moment, and then moving on to New Hampshire, and then we'll get into like what I think about him actually leaving New Hampshire, but I just man, I'm looking forward to them reconciling, hopefully by the end of the season.
Was there a metaphor when he was putting in the speech, live free or die? Is that a metaphor?
I think it's the New Hampshire,
I'm
state,
saying like with
motto.
him and Claire, almost like a fight of what they're going through of like, he's saying like, you know, you really gotta
They do that all the time in this show where they put little subtle references and like just when they cut back and you just realize it's a metaphor for what he's actually going through.
Yeah.
And so I definitely think it was a metaphor.
Yeah. And this, I mean, might be too early. Claire is. Who do we like? Do you like Claire better or do you like Frank better?
I like Claire better, but I'm probably biased.
Or
Obviously,
who do you hate less? Maybe would be a better way to phrase it.
Well, we see Claire getting humanized. You know, the last couple episodes, even last season, like you see this human element coming to her. But there's something about seeing Frank just so vulnerable that makes you go like she didn't feel vulnerable to me. She feels human to me, but not vulnerable. He's starting to feel vulnerable to me, and that's why I'm starting to really fall in love with his character.
I mean, we've seen her very vulnerable before when she left, you know, when she failed at initially getting the UN ambassadorship, then when she was thrown out of the ambassadorship. And we've seen Frank do some terrible things. I mean, he's killed Peter, he's Zoe. I mean, the list can go on and on about the things that Frank has done to make us hate him, and yet he's just one of those characters that is just so engaging, especially with us as an audience.
Absolutely.
I have to say Frank's my favorite.
I totally dig him. And so I was trying to think of a theme for this episode, and it was hard because there's so many things going on. These writers are brilliant. But for me, it ended up being the theme of every awesome actor that was showing up in this episode. And we start off with Ellen Burstyn, just, you know, Claire goes home, and we're not really sure who this person is. And we're like, well, what's this relationship going to be? And I just thought it was interesting how we noticed right away there's tension. So what do you guys think about the tension between mom and daughter?
I love Ellen Burstyn so much
God.
that when I saw her, and I knew, you know, leading up to this that she would be in it, but I was like, this is just such a perfect actress, I feel like, to play the role of, you know, Claire's mom. But that tension was so palpable. Like, you know, what kind of mother and daughter, like your daughter comes home, it's like you don't get out of your room to say hi or you don't embrace nothing. So I just saw that set up and I'm like, this is a shitty relationship. You know, they have some serious issues. And I couldn't really understand why. I think it's because of the Frank thing. I think at some point in the past season she had mentioned something about that. But it's so heavy.
I think she's a great casting because she's a very strong lead woman. And you see that in Claire, and you could tell that they were related just right off the bat in just the strength and how they carry themselves.
But also in like some sort of, they also have like a quiet demeanor, but like you said, there's strength there, but it's like so not like in your face, it's subtle.
Right.
It's just like, I'm here, I'm strong, I'm badass, moving on.
And even the setup to when she got home, I mean, it's completely dark, just dark scene, and it sets it so well.
It filmed so well, and my last interaction with Ellen Burstyn, it was like impacting me, was Requiem for a Dream, and it was so powerful. So I saw her on the screen, and I was like, oh my god, it's gonna be a season.
Do you know also what? There's another thing that you said the house was dark, but there's also like nothing in the house. There's no
and
like
everything's draped and everything's covered. It's so like dry.
Or at least most of it is, and it's like it just doesn't have any life. It's like this empty place that just holds such a horrible weight on them, and it's just you could feel it right away.
And it might kind of be that devoid of like that emotionless person that Claire has become, and sort of kind of figuring that into play.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, even the relationship with who I'm assuming is the butler. Just call it the butler.
Yeah.
You could even see that Claire and he had there's no small talk, none whatsoever. You would have to assume that they knew each other in the past, but I thought that was interesting to show how Claire has really pushed away the family.
Kind of distanced herself and closed herself off. And maybe it was necessary to be with someone like Frank. And I think we see Frank's kind of vulnerability when he's in the room and he's going over the speech and he needs to Meechum, and he just asks him to stay. And we know Meechum is he's not just asking any security personnel to stay.
I actually thought something would happen there, but...
Yeah, that was interesting because, if we remember, he was the guy they had the threesome with.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was interesting to see Frank just need him to be there because he's not been without anyone in that room. He always had Claire there. And so that was where the vulnerability for me kind of really endeared me to Frank. How about you guys?
He tries to stay so strong all the time, especially in public. Anytime giving a speech, anytime he tries to convey that. But you can only do so much, I think.
Yeah.
And I think also being in that position of being president, I feel like there are a few moments where you're actually alone. So at some point it actually gets uncomfortable. So you're like, I don't know what to do with myself alone. So somebody come in here, please. And obviously Meechum seems like the best possible person at that. I don't know. Maybe there's other stuff that could have gone on. I don't know.
Oh, totally. No, I thought it was hysterical. And I don't know if you guys caught this too, but when Frank is sitting there and he's reading his papers, and then he finally kind of starts tuning into what was actually on the television, and he hears his own voice from earlier in the day when he was at the landing in was it Texas at that point, I think maybe. But when he actually had said to the little girl, "Oh, aren't you a cutie pie?" And but he said that as Meechum was walking by. It was just like the perfect timing, and it was just like, it was so horribly awkward, but like. It was great.
Well, what I thought was interesting was kind of about that whole dynamic. With Meechum, I started to see a little ambition, or at least a little wanting to get closer to Frank, where he's taking off the glasses. Do you want me to stay? He sees an opportunity here. Claire's gone. Can I get closer to the president? And I wonder, do you guys think that'll take hold in the season?
It's possible.
Yeah, I think if it would have taken hold, I think that something would have happened in that moment, because we're seeing Frank probably at his lowest point, where his wife just doesn't want anything to do with him. And we hope that there's going to be some reconciliation in the season, and he's hoping that there's going to be some reconciliation. And I think that there might have been a moment when he asks Meechum, when he saw her, well, like, what was she doing? And she was looking at the mandala. And if we remember the note that he actually had left her, he left her the note that said, "Nothing is forever except us," when he actually gave her that portrait. So I think that there was a fleeting thought in his mind that he's thinking, well, maybe there's a chance, maybe there's hope.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if we see so many people flip on this show where, give me this information and all of a sudden you get this. I'm wondering if Meechum will be one of those people, because that will be some very damning information.
He's totally in a position of power to do that kind of flip and inflict probably the most damage.
But right now, it looks like he still likes Frank, and he's still kind of part of the team. So
Still loyal.
We'll see where that goes.
Maybe hopes for some extra action.
But we do have to say that a Secret Service agent, their whole purpose in life is to serve the president and to protect the president. Even with personal matters getting in the way, I still don't think that.
I know. I have this idea that
Meechum's loyal.
I have this idea that Meechum's going to get continually rejected and get pissed off. I don't know.
Okay. All right.
That's fair. Yeah.
And then we had the dream, and how they love just making metaphors and things like that. So that dream was just vicious. They're battering each other. What do you guys think?
Go for it, Michael.
No, there's, and this is it's an overarching theme, is that it's one of those things where I hate that I love this show, because it seems like that where I'm like, what? This is just terrible. I'm literally just watching him just beat up Claire, and I'm like, oh, I just hate this show, but I love this show.
She got the eye gouge.
And and they're just fighting, and you're like, oh, you just wish it were better, but you realize that's why the show is there.
Yeah, but I feel like it's such a conflicting emotions, conflicting feelings that Frank is having. So I feel like it's just the perfect way to show us. I mean, actually show us while he's dreaming about it. But you know what? She gets off a couple hits too. She stabs him with a shard, and then she does eye gouge him. So it's almost like both of them are like in this kind of weird spiral vortex relationship where none of them can really get out. It's just kind of like they're gonna be hitting each other back and forth for the rest of this.
They toxically need each
toxic.
other. Yeah.
Great word. Yes.
Exactly. I mean, it's a good, as you were saying, it's just like a perfect stalemate. These two are, made to butt heads with one another, and they evenly do so. I mean, they each find their way to get at one another, and clearly in Frank's subconscious, he's feeling it right now.
Yeah, and I think, it sets it up, I would imagine, for the remainder of the season. season where it's just going to be fighting, and so it's it sets it up that this is what the season's going to be, is butting heads.
And they're going to do this kind of with a public persona of everything's awesome.
Yeah.
Which I'm excited to see how they pull that off.
But I think they will each get their blows in, and I think that if anything, that's what I take from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And going with the same theme of different actors, we have Claire meeting with Leanne. And it actually took me about 20 minutes to realize Leanne was Nev Campbell, and I was like, "Oh my God!" That's,
I as soon as she walked in, I was like, "Oh my God, from The Craft! Hi, what's up?" And scream, obviously.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So what another amazing character. And so what do you guys think of that? So now she is going full force. She's like, I'm still gonna get my seat. I'm still gonna do something. I've lost its ambassadorship, but we're still on a plan.
I'm looking forward to this relationship very much so. You can tell that they are really made for one another. Let's just say, like, if we predict that Claire is going to go forward and actually win political office, that Leanne would be her chief of staff at some point in time. I think that there's going to be a lot of loyalty between these two characters, and I think that there are similarities between them as well. When Leanne said that she was consistently doubted by her father, and Claire, she's doubted by almost everybody in her life, including her own husband at this point in time.
I think it's like the perfect blow from Claire to Frank, because on top of that, Frank is technically, I guess, a Republican, and she's gonna be running. She's gonna be in like the Democratic circle or circuit. And I mean, it's just the perfect blow, but at the same time, he can't necessarily like shut it down, because like, what would that mean? So I just think like, if she's gonna use any kind of ammunition against him or towards him, it's gotta be something that's political, and I think this is a good way to do it. And especially in like Texas, which is like a Republican state.
Frank is, I mean, he is a Democrat from, South Carolina? Was that where he was?
Frank isn't a Republican? I thought he was a Republican.
I think he's a Democrat.
He's a
Democrat.
Sorry, then never mind. But I still, never mind. For some reason, I thought
He
because
has that southern drawl.
Well, you know what the America Works
for a
program,
moment.
and I actually stopped to go Wikipedia if he was Democrat or Republican, because when they were talking about America Works, they were talking about getting rid of all those social programs. So I immediately assumed Republican as well. I was like, wait a minute, I thought he was.
Well, the reason I said that was because there was some sort of quick interview with Kevin Spacey about whether or not Frank Underwood would back Donald Trump, and he said, "Well, yeah, he would, but it would be to like shove him to the ground or whatever." But that's why I got confused. But anyway, I still think it's the best way to like kind of like hit him where it kind of hurts, because her other like it delvings in either political stuff with the UN ambassador thing. She had a situation in Russia where that did not go well. So I feel like this is another blow, and it's like he has to keep covering for it. So she's just gonna keep like aiming at him where it hurt, and aiming at him wherever it hurts, I guess, the most.
Yeah, and I think something from last season that she said to Frank was she hated having to ask him for permission. And I think this is the first time she's like, I'm going to do what I want, and you can either be a part of this or not. Yeah. And so I think that was important to see.
I always compare things that happen in the show to things like real life circumstances at all. And clearly there's no history of, a first lady running while her husband is office. Obviously the biggest one is Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
Right.
And obviously the races she's
She
involved
looks
in
like
now.
Hillary Clinton a little bit too.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, there's no history at all of that happening. And so I don't know how well that would even be received.
I feel like it's a very, honestly, this is going to sound strange, but like maybe it's more of like more in keeping with the times in terms of feminism, where it's like you don't have to be first lady and stay in the White House, but you can be first lady and you can do your own thing, and you can like try and make strides, So I think that's like a huge step that she's making to break out from that like mold of like first ladiness.
Yeah.
I think with the right kind of optics, it can work, because when Bill was elected, they really kind of pitched it as a package deal. You're getting these two people that like, she's awesome and he's obviously going to be president, so it's going to be great. And so I think that's why Hillary was able to kind of be very active, and so I think you're seeing that with Claire, where it's sort of this kind of deal of you're getting these two people. And we saw earlier that during the primary trail, they were really loving Claire more than they were even loving Frank. So she does have a lot of power when it comes to that.
I mean, likability is half the battle of getting into the White House.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, it is.
And then we see kind of, once again, the double dealing with this press secretary and getting offered the chief of staff position for, 2 years later, things go south for Frank. So that kind of exposed the marital rift. 'Cause I think that it wasn't explicitly said, but they make that deal with him, and then all of a sudden on TV we see that the marital problems are coming out.
Yeah.
So do you guys think he leaked that? I'm sure it was him.
Yeah. I mean, Seth still feels jaded from last season for not being actually given the chief of staff title, despite everything that was going on with Stamper at the time. we do see that that Seth is ambitious, that he's going to actually have that backup plan. That's how we were first introduced to Seth. He actually came on in with information about the abortion, right to the Underwoods, and that's how he was actually brought in as press secretary. So he's going to actually have those backup plans for himself in place.
Yeah, I think, and he's getting more and more frustrated when they cut him off that call, when he was like, Seth, can you drop out of the call? I think he's just getting more and more frustrated. So he's either going to blow up even more, or he's just going to keep continually, getting those jabs in.
Do you see him completely switching sides by the end of the season, or still just being an undercover informant?
I think that it really depends on how much they cut him out. I see Seth as always being a man of opportunity, and I think that in the end, Frank is going to come out on top over Dunbar. So I see him sticking.
But they did plant those seeds when they told him get off the call, and he's with Doug, and he kind of goes over the plan to explain the marital discourse, and that kind of brings me to Doug. What a character Doug has been, and we kind of see him come back full force, and he's intimidating Leanne.
Can I just say, I actually love that he's back, because I think seeing him not in his position, like last season where he was recovering and doing all this stuff, just wasn't the same as having him like active and literally doing Frank's dirty work. So I kind of miss that, and I'm so glad that that's back in full force.
Yeah, I mean, I was just up in arms at the end of season 2 when I thought he was dead. I'm like, there's no way that you can kill him in time. I'm about to leave this series because he's one of my favorite characters. I love him.
Amazing.
Yeah, he's so like diabolical, and the way they set up scenes with just discussing what they're going to do, and him handing the phone to Leanne when they decide to really intimidate her.
Yeah.
And what did you think about that speech Frank gave to her about, I heard you handed my sister the gun, and
I mean, he's a man of intimidation, and he's going to use whatever power he can wield as president of the United States in order to get his way. You
know what? I'm actually afraid for Leanne in this case, because we know what happened with Zoe. So it's just like, I'm like, girl, I just don't think you want to cross this person. But at the same time, like, it's a good opportunity in terms of like Claire's situation. But I'm like, girl, be careful, please. Like, you're gonna get pushed in front of a subway.
And I think initially it worked because she doesn't show up for that meeting. And we'll talk about that. Cicely Tyson, just another boom, and then Lisa Gay Hamilton alongside her. I remember her from the practice. Just they're hitting us with really great actors here.
I loved having Cicely Tyson.
What do y'all think of that scene, especially because it turns real quick? First Claire realizes that Doug has kind of ambushed her, and now she's dealing with this whole thing.
Here's my thing, though. I think Claire has gotten to the point where she just thinks she can just like swoop in and do anything. Yeah. And it's even evident when she tells Leanne, like, "Oh, what are you interested in? Like money?" And it's like, that's not how you solve this. You can't expect to represent people who are not going to feel represented by having you in the 30th district. Yeah. So I think here a little bit of like her naivete, if she even has any, shows, and a little bit of her like ego, a little bit, where it's like she wants to do this, but I don't think she understands like what it actually represents, what it actually means for the people. Yeah. Not for her, because for her it's great, but I'm saying for the people.
And I mean, and she should know more than anybody that her daughter has been waiting for the seat for 10 years, and that she's just going. She thinks that a breast cancer research center is going to actually be a bargaining chip in order to flip the cards. Like, I just don't see how that.
Also, a little name drop with the Planned Parenthood thing. I thought that was very interesting. But yeah, I agree with you. It's like, oh, but you can wait some time. I'm like, bitch, who do you think you are? Like, coming in and just whipping my mom, like, out of her seat, and then putting yourself in there, and it's like doing whatever you want here. This is not your place.
It sets it up, and I'll be interested as the season goes on of what difficult things will Claire do. Obviously, we saw for Frank to get the position that he is of power, he's had to do some really bad things. I mean, kill people, stuff like that. Now that you have Claire trying to do that, she has to be faced with those same situations with the pushback that we're already seeing.
Yeah, and she's already suffered setbacks. I do not see her standing for another one. I just don't see her allowing that to happen. No. And I think another great exchange happened earlier with Frank and the mother. So we see them getting ready to kind of put forth this face of the health issues, and he's going to tell her what happens. But you see the president really kind of being very human in that moment, with her. So what do you guys think about Ellen Burstyn really kind of reading his rights in that scene?
I mean, that is a stereotypical mother-in-law and son-in-law type of relationship. I mean, you gotta love the bitterness behind their words and how much, how there was lack of class, but how they tried to have that southern hospitality, and yet there was just vile words behind everything.
No respect for the office of the presidency whatsoever. She just didn't care.
Well, yeah, I mean, she even tells him not even being president can give you any class. I mean, it was just a perfect line for that moment.
And she just is kind of like classy in her way also. So it even feels like it stings more because I don't think she goes too nasty. I think she does it just right, which is, I think, good writing.
I actually thought initially that was fake, that she was sick. That was like a cover for her actually being down.
Oh, I see.
And so like until the end, I was like, oh, wait, she's actually sick.
Yeah.
And not like, oh, we need a cover for why Claire would be down in Texas.
Well, yeah, initially I thought so as well.
Yeah.
Actually, I didn't think that at all because I think we needed something to get Claire like emotional.
Something real.
Something real, but not like the whole Frank thing where I'm like, I'm leaving you and I'm walking out the door.
Yeah.
No, like something real, and I think this was the perfect one. So I was like, oh, damn.
Yeah. And I don't know if y'all noticed during the press conference this little thing that the face that Claire makes when Frank talks about her being a loving daughter and then a loving wife, and it was like it was so subtle to me, but it was so like loving daughter. It was a moment of shame, and a loving wife with this moment of like very like she was indignant. She was just, how dare you even kind of lump that together, because he's very smart at weaving that together. What do you think about her position now? How is she going to juggle being this daughter and wife? And 'cause we see some real emotion. Is she going to stay there? She's already said she will do.
Yeah, I think she's staying there.
Yeah, I think she's staying there because she wants to be the representative of the 30th district. She's going to do everything that she can to win that seat, because that's what she's always wanted to do. She's not going to let Frank push her around, and she's already kind of found a way to get Frank to accept the fact that she's going to run for this seat. We'll see what Frank tries to pull in the coming episodes, because he seemed like he was content with just allowing her to appear over at the State of the Union address in 2 weeks. But we'll see past that what he needs from her in order for her to continue this run for the seat.
But I wonder, will she lose her resolve? Will she actually become this human person that's taking care of her dying mother? Because we have that moment where her mom says, "Are you crying for me, or is that for you?"
Yeah, I thought that was interesting and just a great way to show how troubled their relationship is, and it's not really real. And even the hug was like, come here, and it was just kind of like so slow and sluggish, and I'm like, is this even gonna happen?
I felt that it was very genuine. You could see that there was a lot of. I felt that there was a lot of pain from Claire there.
I felt the pain, but I feel like the way that they did it was kind of like, it didn't seem natural to me, just because we've never done it before. I think that's what I meant. Like,
okay.
Yeah, not that there wasn't emotion, but that it felt like, oh, this is almost the first time we're doing this.
It was like years of
built
up.
Years of like nothing, and then collapsing into this kind of like emotional sobbing, embrace. And it's I feel like this might break her. I mean, this could be one of the things that actually gets to her like severely. I mean, we've seen other things that kind of try and have gotten close, but I think this will really hurt her, because I mean, you have your mom, this troubled relationship that you don't even have. You have like a collapsing marriage, and then it's like at some point you're gonna break.
Yeah.
You can't hold it together. Claire cannot hold all this together. I feel like.
Well, and it says something that was the first place that she went after they've parted, her and Frank, because she was clearly missing that in her life, and she needed to go back to her mother. And I think that moment in time where they do embrace was clearly years of you could tell with Ellen, you could tell that she was stern. She was accepting of the fact that her daughter was breaking down, but it's like she had come to terms with the fact that her daughter has left her life. But I don't think Claire has ever felt that she has left her life. It's just that other things have gotten in the way of their relationship, and now she's trying to reconcile what's been lost for these years.
Yeah, totally agree. And we'll go back to that. I wanted to touch a little bit. There's so many things going on in this episode.
So many plot lines.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And I wanted to. They always like to do an overarching plot line. I think that's probably where the reporter is going to come into play. So we see him. He's in witness protection. They've told him under Rule 35, the president won't even know unless the AG happens to tell him.
Yeah,
and the AG
would
won't
never.
ever.
It would never happen.
They would never say
Odds
that.
are it's gonna happen.
It's like that's a setup right there.
Yeah.
So yeah, what do we think is going to happen with the reporter? He's now in witness protection.
He's not saying silent. That's clear.
Yeah.
No, I think that as we kind of talked about earlier, we think that Lucas is probably going to play a big role in leaking some kind of story, or at least kind of going after Frank in some sort of
And
way.
we have the Armenian power. So that's he's
Yes.
talking to the guy. I
Yeah.
had never heard of the Armenian power before. So, but we know looks like that'll be a group involved in this season.
Yeah, and they say in LA, so I was like, huh.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Okay, we might have something here.
And the
going
guy
on.
was tatted up. He had Armenian pride in the back.
Yeah.
They really set him up for that. So.
Yeah, and the fact that we did not hear the name that was revealed by him. It's just kind of cut off.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to finding out who this
Yeah,
is
they always
because I
have to
think it's
keep-
going to come into play.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
always have to keep an overarching sort of like central dilemma, which is interesting. So we'll see how that goes. But for me, I this season will probably be defined as the rise of Clear. You know, we get
Yeah.
that the last line is "You're stronger than he is, but you have to put him in his place." So I'd love to hear from you guys. What do you think? What are your predictions for this season and the next few episodes? How is Clear going to like play into this?
Again, I'm just interested to see what sacrifices she will make to reach power. Clearly, she wants power, and that's where I talked about at the beginning. Who is worse? Is it Claire or is it Frank? Obviously, we've seen Frank do a lot of things, but they're the same person.
Yeah.
I mean, at the core, they are the same exact person, wanting the power, doing anything to get it.
They've been in a relationship for a really long time, and they understand very well like how they work and whatnot. In order to be with someone for that long, you have to accept like who they are and what they do. So I agree with Michael. I think they're the same person.
Yeah.
They are exactly the same person. They're just situations and circumstances are somewhat different, but they are exactly the same person, and they are equally as bad.
I would argue that season 3 might have actually been the rise of Claire to begin with. I think that she's already gotten to a point where she is independent in her own right. I think at the beginning of season 3, we even saw, the fact that she had revealed her sexual assault back in college, the fact that she did obtain an ambassadorship, and then she left Frank. The one thing in her life that was a constant was Frank, but also the one thing that was holding her back the most. I think season 3 was the rise of Claire, and I think that season 4 might be a season of reconciliation.
Yeah, well, she certainly knew how to leave him properly, not to like actually leave him. No one really knows what's happening.
Yeah.
When she left at the end of season 3, I was like, this isn't gonna actually happen. You know what I mean? I just didn't think that was. I thought it was like okay, temporary. You're not here. We're in a fight. Blah blah blah. But yeah, I don't think.
Do you think that simply from the plotline, or do you think that from once again looking at real life and saying this would never actually happen? You couldn't actually do this. You would have to, maintain the face. You would have to finish out the terms.
I think it's a combination of both, actually, because I think the latter is completely correct. But I also think, like, just knowing how these people are, I just don't think they function without each other. I really don't see that. And when they've tried, it really fails. Really fails.
Because if they separate, I wouldn't see her reputation being able to withstand winning that election.
It's completely different having him go through a divorce and then running for president. I feel like, and they play that up a lot. I mean, with Jackie Sharp having to be married, for running against and whatnot, to balance that out. But it's like they really play that up a lot. It's gonna work the same way for that couple, for Frank and Claire, if that happens too. So it's gonna mess it up.
And I think they're mirroring like real life, to some degree. It's go back to Bill and Hillary Clinton. And they're already kind of showing, what is that young charismatic guy on the opposite side, on the Republican side. They're kind of setting up a little Barack Obama, but in a different context, in a different context type of deal. And so I think it's interesting to see how it mirrors real life, and I love the way that they've written it now. It's with the New Hampshire primary. We just went through the New Hampshire primary. So it's cool to kind of be in that atmosphere while the show is on.
I also thought it was really cool to compare, obviously this week, the passing of Nancy Reagan. And a lot of people think, the First Lady is more of just a person, just someone to be by the president. And you really have seen this week with Nancy Reagan and everything she was able to accomplish, of how important the First Lady is.
Yeah.
And you're seeing that in this show, and you're seeing that in real life. And I thought that was an interesting tie-in, especially considering that this is really, Claire full on in this season, of seeing the importance and what everyone meant of Nancy Reagan and how important of a figurehead she was and everything that she was able to accomplish. I just thought it was really interesting.
This is probably the perfect year to watch this show, by the way, for all you viewers out there. If you haven't seen it and you're just tuning in, this is literally the perfect time to watch this show. It's so relevant.
Yeah.
100%.
And so, I'm just excited to see what happens next. We have so many storylines. There's so many good things going on, and Claire seems poised for a real good run at Office. So we'll see what happens. I encourage you guys to download us on iTunes, give us 5 stars. Definitely tweet at us, leave YouTube comments. We love to interact with you guys. Again, my name's Shaka Smith. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram under Shaka Strong.
My name is Michael Clous on Instagram at @TheOnlyMC, on Twitter at Michael Clous TV.
And I'm Maria Cavassuto. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Maria Cavassuto, and then on Snapchat at MGCVSST.
And I am Kevin Ellis. You can find me on Twitter at @TheKevinEllis or on Instagram at KevinEllis25.
Is that the 2 E's?
The Kevin Ellis.
Okay. So 1 E.
The Kevin Ellis. I'm a Wisconsinite, guys, so you gotta expect some kind of accent to come through.
True. Well, please join us every Wednesday at 8 p.m. We'll see you guys next week.
Adios.
Executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff. We would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows, and from executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.